Hey chatting chatters, I'm ML7 and this is my Loki guide. Loki is one of the hardest heroes and, in my opinion, the hardest strategist Marvel Rivals has yet released. It takes time, like a lot of time to learn, and even when you feel like you play him decently, you'll make one mistake and realize that a trickster tricked you into thinking you know how to play him. But fear not, after this guide, you'll get a clearer picture of how to play him. I'll structure it like this: abilities, general playstyle, Loki counters and who he counters, advanced tips and tricks. Let's dive into it. Ability rundown: primary fire mystical missile. Projectile shots that heal allies or damage enemies. Very hard to land on flying heroes. A small tip here: if you have to heal a flying hero, then tell them to hug a wall so you can splash your primary fire on it. I remember I had a game in which my Star-Lord said he's gonna ult. I told him to hug the pillar to his left while doing it so I can heal him, and although he got focused a lot, I managed to land some healing shots on him because of this, and we won that team fight. You have 10 ammo and your illusions won't consume any of it. Each shot creates a 3-meter radius spell field. The healing part of it has no healing fall off and does 40 health per cast. This means that you can heal a ton with it, while the damage part is a bit trickier to understand. It does 30 damage per shot, but has damage fall off that starts from a pretty close distance. So, while being quite deadly, as you can 3-tap 250 HP heroes if both your illusions are up, here are the 250 HP heroes, or 4-tap 275 HP heroes, wait for it, here they are. You have to aim either at their bodies or at the base of their feet. You can't aim in the general direction because your DPS will lower by quite a lot. You can set up to shoot in 3 ways. A. For damage ult farming, at feet level, from high ground preferably, and choke points where the enemies will come from. B. For healing ult farming. Positioning is more forgivable because the radius doesn't have healing fall off. C. For picks, if you already have your ultimate or your team is at an ultimate disadvantage, so you can maybe make the fight 6 vs 5 and defeat that disadvantage. How? By focusing the 250 HP or 275 HP heroes that I've listed before in order to at least force cooldowns from them or even ultimates. You can animation cancel your reload with abilities or melee before the animation that plays in the center of the screen when reloading finishes. I mean, this one. This is something I'm not currently using that much, but plan on investing time on it so that I can get a muscle memory going. The higher APM, the more carry potential. I recommend you do the same, but if it turns out to be a little bit too much to keep track of and it messes up your gameplay flow, then this can be learned at a later date. It's better to reload rather than animation cancel reload and you mess it up and you're stuck reloading for 30 seconds. I'll chat about how you can maximize your damage and healing with your illusions when we get there, but I wanted to say that if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Moving on. Deception. He becomes invisible, leaves an illusion in his place, and regenerates HP while in it. While invisible, you can place new illusions, reposition to them, and reload. Anything else and you'll become visible again. Be careful with flanking with it though, as the enemies can hear your footsteps. I kind of learned this the hard way. So, if you stealth and go behind the enemies and they're paying attention to the game rather than a Discord call, then they'll hear you coming. If you want to go for this approach, try either to find spots to let the enemies pass you before fights so they don't hear you coming that much, or stealth in right before the fight is about to begin to take advantage of the chaos that is about to happen. Initially, I thought that this part of the kit was really weak and needed a buff. A small movement speed would have been awesome, or maybe even more HP regeneration. But as the time went by, I realized what you're supposed to do with it, apart from the obvious primary use of escaping fights, either by using this ability and running away, or by teleporting to an illusion, then using it, then running away. This ability is awesome for 3 big reasons. It leaves an illusion that I would say is less valuable than your E skill, the Doppelganger, because this one places the clone in a locked spot that usually enables you to do healing and damage and helps you reposition and whatever, but it usually doesn't help you get a good regeneration domain in, as your allies might not be next to you, while the Doppelganger one gives you an area in which you can place it so you have more room to work with. If you do not play against melee/dive heroes that want to focus you down, try to use this ability more in order to set up illusions to increase your damage and healing output and have your double E ability ready if you have to plan for an escape, save your allies, look for a potential pick on somebody that's out of position, or just deny more area by spreading your illusions more, especially to high ground spots. Another reason why I love this ability is that it gives you time to reload mid-fight. Maximizing teamfight contribution is key to winning more fights, and I feel that reloading takes you out of the action for a bit, so picture this scenario. Fight begins, you deplete one magazine, you have to reload, but of course they probably destroyed at least one of your illusions until now. Use Deception to leave another one, reload while being mostly safe and reposition, then continue the fight. You'll see how much more fluid his gameplay will feel. And it helps you position your illusions better and safer. Use this ability first so the enemies can't see you, get close to them so you can place 2 illusions in good spots, especially behind them so the enemies have to decide if they turn around to break your illusions or focus your team in the front, and then spam them out. You might win the teamfight just based on that. Some extra tips. If the enemies are focused on targeting you, then you should save it for escapes. Teleport to an illusion, then cast it to get out of harm's way. The enemies can get lucky and hit you while being stealthed, revealing you, so don't be in front of them when they are shooting your allies. This is your main self-healing ability, not your regeneration domain. So if you need some healing in fights and aren't getting any, try to use Deception first, and if that's not possible, then use regeneration domain, as this ability has higher value and enemies keep track of it more. Your 15-second cooldown starts after you reveal yourself. Backstab. You do extra melee damage from behind, 45 damage versus the usual 30 melee damage. I think that the vision for this ability was that you sneak behind the enemies, start with melee, place your illusions, take the fight, win it, and whatever. But bro, they can hear your footsteps, and it's not that afraid of a combo to start fights like that. I don't know, the animations are not that smooth. Not to mention that it only does plus 15 damage more than a usual melee. Once in a blue moon, you might get a kill with it. Don't spend time planning for it that much, but just remember that if the opportunity presents itself, it can help you. Regeneration domain. This has to be my favorite ability that Loki has. I call it Lamp as it's similar to Baptista's Lamp ability from Overwatch, and the word doesn't have any R's in it, which is hard for me to pronounce because of my eroticism. Call it how you like. Lamp, Rune, Regeneration domain. Just make sure to say when you use it or that you have it, because this ability is broken. We've all seen it. He creates a spell field on his location where his illusions are by using some destructible runes. Each rune has 100 HP. Each area lasts for 5 seconds or until the runes are destroyed. But let's talk about the numbers. Each spell field gives you 100 HP per second. This means that if you stack them, you can get 300 HP per second for 5 seconds. For comparison, Luna's ult gives you 250 HP per second. So, if your team needs a huge burst of healing, consider placing all 3 of them close to each other. This is an extreme example though, that showcases the potential healing that this ability can bring you, and implicitly, ultimate charge. In a real game scenario, you will probably spread them across the battlefield because although the healing is cool, there's something cooler here, the immortality aspect of it. The ability description is written in such a way to not make you rage, but if you read through the lines, you'll see what I mean. Future ML here. I just learned that the saying is read between the lines, not through the lines. Thank you, Google. The ability says that any damage taken will be converted into healing based on the amount of damage taken. To be specific, 30% conversion rate. This means that while the runes are up, you or any ally in their area cannot die. This is extremely valuable information because you can tank every ultimate in the game if the timing is right, and you can create a pretty big area denying it. If there are no ultimates to deny, then you can use it to save low HP teammates. For instance, a tank that got pulled into the enemies by Wolverine by throwing one of your illusions into them and using Lamp to get them out alive. I do this quite a lot, by the way. You can also use it to take space. Your teammates don't want to walk to the point for whatever reason, no problem. Just create a path with your illusions and use your regenerative burst to encourage them to take space. This should be used scarcely as it's way more important to save it for abilities and ultimates, but come on now, we've all had games in which teammates just refuse to walk up to the point. And lastly, you can use it in duel/flanking plays, a case in which I encourage you to stack them if you don't plan an escape. They'll have to break all 3 runes before they can eliminate you, and you'll receive a ton of healing before they do that. One other thing, regeneration domain can be used no matter the distance. This means that if after you respawn, your illusions are still up where the teamfight is happening, then you can use it from spawn, and it might save your teammates halfway across the map. To recap, use your Lamp to save teammates by denying enemy ultimates or abilities. Quick note here, don't use this ability when your teammates are already using defensive ultimates unless those defensive ultimates can save them or your team. For example, Luna's no ults, you hear enemy Iron Man or Magneto ult, assume they're going to aim for the Luna, place your illusion next to her, and save her with your Lamp. Of course, there's timing involved here, but you know what I mean. to make space for your team if you feel like you need it, either to like walk up to the point or maybe to protect the Punisher that's ulting, because you know that they're gonna focus him down, and bro needs his space in order to get eliminations doing his ult, or individually to look for picks, as it helps you win a ton of duels. View it as a second ultimate, but don't hold on to it forever. I feel like a lot of Loki players try to use this ability once every 2 or 3 minutes and stuff. I think that if you read the flow of the game correctly, you'll see a lot of situations in which you can be proactive with it rather than only reactive. Doppelganger. This ability is the most complicated part of his kit. I'll try my best to keep it simple. Your illusions shoot, reload, melee, lamp like you. They can't stealth and can't jump, so if you jump, the enemies will know which one is the real Loki. The illusions will aim where you are aiming, so if you think that you can hit enemies/allies with some illusions that are still up after you respawn, then try to predict where the enemies are and you might land some shots. They do the same amount of damage and healing that you do, so if all 3 of you hit the same target, imagine the healing or the damage. Okay, cool. I know that Mystic Streamer, but how do I use them? The one thing that sucks about Loki gameplay is when your illusions are shooting walls because of how they're placed. Yes, you should prioritize putting them on high ground as it's harder for the enemies to deal against them, but make sure that they actually heal or do damage. One way to make sure of this is to play grouped up with them. This has the downside of not covering as many angles as possible, but sometimes less is more. Higher efficient illusion uptime is more important than having a great illusion setup and never landing your shots. With time, you'll see that you'll come up with your favorite illusion setups on every map. This video isn't about that, but if there's interest in such a topic, I can make a video about it. Please let me know in the comments if this is something you'd like to see from me. I think that it's a pretty fun topic, Loki illusion setups on every map. You don't always have to set up illusions defensively, you can put them to dive the enemies like shown in this clip. Imagine there are enemies on the point, put 2 illusions behind them with a target to focus in mind and start shooting them. It will surprise you how efficient this is in a real game scenario. It's one of my favorite teamfight openers, because a lot of players are just gonna go like, where are we getting shot from? The illusions, turn around, shoot in front, what do we do? Ah, teamfight lost. Sometimes you gotta give up the illusion mind games. Yes, standing still helps you mind game the enemies as they don't know who the real Loki is, but you might not have line of sight of your team or the enemies, so don't be afraid to reposition if you have to. Recently, I started making sure that I have at least 1 illusion charge available as much as possible in fights. Like, I make sure that I start fight with both of them up, but mid to late team fight, having 1 illusion charge available helped me secure a ton of kills, TP to safety, or save a low HP ally. If possible, try to save 1 illusion charge in case things don't go as planned. If the enemies are destroying your illusions a lot, try to hide them a bit more defensively. Place them so that the enemies can't see them, but the illusions can see your allies. You don't always have to have the possibility of doing both damage and healing with them. You can just focus on one. When playing against the Hawkeye, for instance, it's better to have both illusions up that heal your team rather than no illusions, because bro is just gonna one-shot them. And finally, your illusions stay up after you use your ultimate if the enemies don't destroy them. They won't shoot or look where you are aiming, but you can come up with cheeky plays like lamping yourself before copying Iron Man and ulting in your own lamp, or by planning for an escape route after diving the enemies and then trying to find a way out. Be careful though, because your cooldowns are still happening in the background, so if you don't need lamp before the fight, maybe just save it for after you get out. If you copy a strategist though, I like lamping before I copy, because if I need a defensive ult, I already have it, and the lamp can help us take space. Devious exchange. You teleport to one of your illusions. The description of the ability saying swap with the selected illusion is not an honest one. Here's how the ability works. The illusion teleport range is 30 meters. You don't have to look at an illusion to activate your devious exchange. If you are in range of only one of your illusions, you'll swap positions with it. If you are in range of both your illusions and cast it, you will swap positions with the one closest to you. If you want to teleport to the further illusion that's in range, then you have to stare at it. You can teleport to illusions through walls, you don't need line of sight. This means that in fights, if you have your illusions behind you, you don't have to 180-degree TP to them. You can just press the F key. It also means that you can go scout before fights or do some poke damage, then TP back to an illusion you left previously in a safe place where your team is. Just make sure that you are in range. If you're out of the 30-meter range, then the ability will show as unavailable. It's just gonna be grayed out. Lastly, it takes some time to teleport as he has to snap his fingers before in order to show dominance on the battlefield, so don't wait until last second before teleporting as you might die mid-animation. Trust me, I've limit tested this ability so much and I've died a million times. Please, just cast it ugly. I feel like in Marvel Rivals, as the general rule, it's better to predict rather than to react in the last second because there is some animation delay when casting abilities, so definitely use this a little bit faster than you'd usually want to. Loki's ultimate. Your powers are mine. Tap to ultimate voice lines that the enemies fear, apart from again! Loki copies the targeted enemy or ally. He can use all of their abilities apart from the team-up abilities and has their ultimate already charged and ready to cast. Who do you want to copy is the biggest question here. I've recently done an extended tier list in which I explain my copy tier list. Here's the link to the video. In the beginning of that video, I also go over how you can extend your copy ultimate duration, a strategy that will come in handy if the right scenario presents itself. I'll dive into explanations in a second. One more thing. There's a setting you can change for the ultimate that will help you out. I dive into it towards the end of the video. Here's the timestamp. Alright, now that we know what the ultimate does, who to copy, how to extend the ultimate, and what settings you might want to change, how do you effectively use it? Here are some guidelines. 1. Try to copy only heroes that you're comfortable playing. You might want to copy Spider-Man, but if you're like me and have 5 minutes on him in training range, you'll probably just waste your ultimate. This also means that if you have to pick between copying Luna Snow or Mantis and you are more comfortable with using Mantis, then just copy Mantis. 2. If you are the solo strategist and you copy a Vanguard or Duelist, you will lose the fight if you can't finish it in a couple of seconds. Your team will lack healing and they won't like it that much, so if you want to do this, then make sure you can finish the fight in 2 or 3 seconds after your copy. I would say copy Iron Man and ult like 6 enemies, so you see how rare this scenario will actually occur in game. 3. If you have 2 strategists in your team and you are one of them, this is where it starts to get tricky. So, A. If you have Adam, try to copy another strategist as your team won't have enough healing throughout the fight. B. If you have Mantis and she doesn't have ultimate, try to copy a strategist for the same mentioned reason. And finally, C. If you have Mantis and she has ultimate, or any of the other strategists with or without ults, then you can go for a risky Duelist or Vanguard copy, but keep in mind that you will stress your other strategist a ton, as it's hard to keep everybody up alive as a solo strategist and they might have to use their ultimate early instead of saving it to counter an enemy ultimate. It's a high risk ultimate, but it might be necessary to do it if your team can't seem to secure kills. Just keep in mind to copy and ult as fast as you can. You don't want your team to play with a solo strategist for 30 seconds. Your goal is to have instant impact with your copy, aggressively. So copy and ult. 4. And now, my favorite scenario, which is also gonna be the trickiest one. 3 strategists in your team. 80% of the time, you'll copy one of the strategists to keep the fight going forever. More like 99% of the time if you have control of the point, or are defending a payload map, as you want the enemies to waste as much time as possible without making progress. This is when copying a Luna Snow early and then using your ult at the last second, as explained in the Loki ultimate tier list video I mentioned earlier, comes in handy. But there will be cases in which you have to cap the point and a defensive strategist copy might not work. What do? Well, usually what I do is I copy a Duelist or a Vanguard and try to force a defensive ultimate out, then go back to my team. Let's say the enemies have Invisible Woman ultimate and I have a Psylocke that's afraid to ult. What I do is I copy my Psylocke, go for Invisible Woman to force her ult out, then get out of the team fight. I trade my copy for a defensive ult and then it's gonna be my Psylocke's turn to ult and carry the team fight. Of course, I mean, if my Psylocke doesn't want to ult and the enemies have no defensive ultimates, then I can just do that and win the teamfight in the first place, but I'm talking about like a more common scenario, I would say. Another example would be if I have a Groot that just ulted, but my Moon Knight didn't follow up on it with his own ultimate, I would just copy Groot, look for an ult, and hopefully we can do the combo with Moon Knight this time. It's all situational, like for example, you feel like that if you copy the enemy Hela, you'll get an insta-kill on the Bucky that's out of position on high ground, then go for it, bro. This is the case in which you can go for aggressive copies. So, the general idea is, if you feel like you need an opening, copy aggressively with 3 strategists. If you feel like you need to buy time, copy proactively, but defensively. Run down the clock as much as possible. Whew, that was a lot. Hope it makes sense. 5. If you copy a strategist, usually want to copy first before they ult. This way, you'll make sure that you won't overlap your ultimate with theirs, and they have enough time to react to enemy ults, as they just have to press their ultimate key, compared to you, who has to find them in the teamfights, copy, then ult. This is when misclicks happen the most, so look for proactive copies. 6. Be careful as you can die mid-cast of your ultimate and during the copy. Here's a clear example of copying a DPS if you know you'll get a clear teamfight win if you have to push/cap the point. My Psylocke ulted to force Mantis ult, and then I knew I would have had a free Psylocke ult. Here's an example of copying a duelist to force... Olaf says hello, by the way. To force enemy defensive ult so my other duelist can clean up the fight after. And 8. Remember that tempo means a lot in games. The right call might be to copy defensively to buy time, but it might not result in a teamfight win compared to copying a duelist and winning the teamfight clearly, giving your team some time to recharge their batteries and think about the next fight. General playstyle. Loki is one of those heroes that if you ignore in teamfights, he'll take over the battlefield. This being said, try to not make yourself the main target of the enemies. Don't be in the front of the line or set up your illusions in such a way so that the enemies can see them first before seeing your allies, because otherwise they'll just destroy them and your damage/healing output during the teamfight will lower down by quite a bit. Try to view Loki gameplay as someone that stays in the middle of your team formation and can rotate to the front or the back if your team needs it. You can also off-angle with him quite easily if you want to control more space, the Loki high ground illusion setup. You can get very creative with him, but there are some general rules. High ground helps you out a ton. Easy to splash your shots from high ground to low ground, hard for enemies to look up and clear them, gives you a safe repositioning option. If you can set up on high ground and have proper line of sight, just do it. If your team doesn't have defensive ultimates for the enemy's ults, try to have at least one illusion cooldown up in your regeneration domain to save teammates that are going to get ulted. Aim for the strategist before fights to force cooldowns/ultimates. If you're getting super close to your ultimate, then make sure to shoot where the enemies are being stacked up to guarantee that you're gonna land your shots. Don't be afraid to fight flankers/melee heroes as you are very annoying for them, similar to how Namor is to them. Understand that your game plan and setups can change each team fight. You're not forced into a one-dimensional playstyle. You are whatever your team needs or whatever you feel like playing that game. Start with a plan and then see how much you can get away with it. For example, you feel that as a Loki player, you are really good at knowing how to use your ultimate. Start the game by putting your illusions in spots where you hit as many enemies/allies as possible and focus on ult farming. If you can't carry with your ultimates for whatever reason, then try something else. Flank and look to get a pick onto somebody. There is always something with him. He's never a boring hero to play. Think about what you want to do to the enemies, and if that doesn't work out, what the enemies want to do to you, and counter it with the tips I've given throughout this video. Heroes that counter Loki. Playing against some heroes as Loki is kind of annoying, and you have to adjust your playstyle to them, or swap heroes. The heroes that annoy me the most when playing him are Hawkeye. Why? Because you can't do mind games with your illusions to poke before fights. Because if he guesses which Loki you are, then you're gonna get one shot and just be dead. So try to limit the amount of mind games you do with your illusions when playing against the Hawkeye. Winter Soldier. You have to track his ultimate if you don't want this happening in your games. Prepare accordingly before fights when you know he has his ultimate up if you don't want to hear in your dreams or nightmares. This is how you do it. Don't play the fight with your illusions, which is the budget version of countering this, but I mean, hey, at least your teammates won't flame you. Have your illusions set up in places where it's hard for him to get ultimate resets. Keeping them way in the back in an open field doesn't mean he won't get the resets, as you can see in this clip. But you can play in uncomfortable positions for him to dive you, like inside rooms he can't get easy access to, around walls and stuff. This is the recommended play. Remember that the lamp doesn't save you from his ultimate, as he just destroys it when he slams, so try to use it after he slams, so that he has to focus it, then the player inside of it. There's another play you can make, but this is just if you feel like you're the Loki GOAT that day. Bait him to dive you, not your illusions, then swap position with an illusion before he eliminates you. This is high risk, but you remove the mark he applies to you. So, keep track of his ultimate. Place your illusions in uncomfortable spots. If he somehow manages to slam one or you, use regeneration domain after so that you buy more time to focus him down. Moon Knight. General gameplay sucks when playing against the Moon Knight because if you put your illusions close to your teammates or to you, he will farm you non-stop. Try to put them either in spots that are nowhere close to your allies or you, like spread them out a lot, or use them aggressively into the enemies if that's not working, to limit the amount of accidental indirect damage you can cause to your team with your illusion placement. Flying heroes like Storm and Iron Man are pretty annoying to deal against, as it's not that easy to damage them, but hey, at least they're good copy targets. Kuhi counters. Teams that play stacked up are very juicy for Loki. You'll get your ultimate in no time, so the majority of triple strategist team comps. Playing against vanguards like Groot and Penny is very satisfying. Although Groot's walls are annoying, I enjoy farm maxing my ultimate from high ground without being afraid he's gonna fly up to me. Heroes that want to dive will usually struggle playing against him. They have to choose the right illusion to dive, and they'll get poked before they even do so, and even if they guess the right one, you can just lamp, change positions, and stealth away. Be confident and poke that magic, Spider-Man, or Venom out. It's similar to playing Neymar against them. Advanced tips and tricks. Loki's kind of like a demolition expert. I mean, just look at these clips over here to compare like the speed between other heroes, and you're gonna see Loki a little bit later on in the clips to see exactly what I mean. I feel like this is one of the most underrated parts in the game right now, and if you master when to use these abilities, like when you should destroy the environment to your advantage, you're gonna win way more games. One thing though to look, as you saw over here while I was running until the game started, I'm seeing like some objectives are destroyable, while some aren't. But the second the door unlocks, I have other destroyable areas. So the default key on PC is B in order to see these destructible areas. Try to like use it after the spawn door is open, like after the round begins, and think which areas you want to spam out. Because for instance, in this case on Yggdrasil, I'm always breaking this bridge in case they have a Wolverine or anybody that wants to take high ground and try to poke my team on defense. And I think that it's super valuable to like destroy the map if you have no other play, you know, like with doing some healing, doing some damage, creating other opportunities. You can deny a lot of cover from the enemies as well when you're attacking. Like just destroy the areas that they're using for cover and you're gonna mess up with a lot of their defensive setups. And one thing, as you see over here on the second part of this map, you can also destroy this high ground. You gotta take my word for it. But this area doesn't unlock until you cap the first point. I mean, you're not gonna need to destroy it anyway, but just as a reminder, press your key that lets you see the areas that you can destroy with Loki, and definitely take advantage of this. Bro is a demolition expert. Change the setting. Double confirmation for God of Mischief from off to on. If you have it on off, then the second you press Q on an enemy or an ally with your ultimate available, you will copy them, resulting in a lot of misclicked ultimates. You can counter this, of course, by lowering the ultimate ability targeting sensitivity and by trying to be more accurate with it. But I prefer to have the confirmation set to on, as things move super fast in this game. Having this setting on means that a portrait will appear showing the hero I'm about to copy, asking me to confirm or cancel the cast. This way, I can double check if that's the hero I want to copy, or maybe even I change my mind and don't want to copy anymore as I don't see it necessary. There's one more advantage to it. I can confirm the copy without even looking at the hero I want to copy once I casted my ultimate. I have a 3-second window before deciding what I want to do. At the end of those seconds, the cast will cancel by itself. I recommend having this on. This doesn't mean that you won't misclick ultimates anymore, but I feel like the frequency of them will decrease. His best maps are defense payload / hybrid type of maps, where you can set up your illusions on high ground before the round starts and destroy the environment to make sure you poke the enemies before the fight begins. This doesn't mean that you can play Loki on every map, it's just that I feel that it's easier to get the value out of him on the maps that I specified. Try to prioritize playing him on these maps. All of the tips and tricks I've mentioned before when I was doing the ability rundown. I realized that I started writing them in that section rather than at the end over here because it made more sense to have them there, so if you want to re-listen to them, they're a bit earlier in the video. And that's it for my Loki guide. Wait, actually, he has a team-up ability with Hela in which if he's still alive and Hela gets an elimination, he gets bonus health, or if he's dead and Hela gets an elimination, then he gets rest. But I mean, there's nothing that you do in order to influence that rest or bonus health thingy other than just making sure that you have a Hela in your team. So if you have a Hela duo, or like you have a Hela player in our team, better said, then try to play more Loki so you can benefit from it. Hopefully. I hope that you found this guide useful. If you enjoyed it, it will help me out a ton if you'd like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out my other YouTube channels as well, ML72 and ML7 Morg. I'll be seeing you in the next YouTube or Twitch livestream or YouTube video. Till next time, ML7 out.
Hey, I'm Olaf. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe. Meow.